Hello everyone, welcome. This is another edition of Live from the Studio. I'm with Peter Nyboer, launching the intro. Right, welcome everybody. I see some people have joined. I've got Alphaster. Hi Alphaster, peronosphora. What's up? I'm with Peter Nyboer. Hi, Peter.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining the show. I'll go a little bit over the news first. So, everybody knows my site, pitchymango.org. I'd like to thank my supporters that allow me to do that. It's on Bandcamp. You go to Bandcamp and you can join my community. It's $20 a year, and what that allow you is that I just dropped a track which is called Dystopia, so you can go and listen to it. Also, I've got some nice t-shirts that were done by Take 15, the design. It's a robot in the space. If you want to have it, it's chimango.org/shop. The usual attractive picture. Next, what we have, Resonant Frequency was last Sunday, was a really an awesome show. You find all the information on RusticNerd Live. I think you've performed there, Peter?
At the laundry?
No, at the Resonant Frequency.
No, I have not.
All right.
I have not had that pleasure.
All right.
I did one at the other frequency one. Resident Frequency,
right. Yes. All right, Resident. I'm gonna get to there. So if you want to watch a Resonant Frequency, they are doing it quarterly, and the show is all on YouTube now, and it's a live performance, so people are streaming live. Really interesting. We've got Peak coming up, which is on the 21st of October, so Wednesday 21st at 7 p.m. And if I'm not mistaken, the artists are Jordan, Michael Francis, and eurorack. I see Bill Wachowski join us, Malarkey also, welcome. RusticNerd, yes. What else do we have? Sonic Alliance is on the third Sunday of the month at 5 p.m, so it will be on the 18th of October. It's on Twitch. Oh, I forgot to put the link for Peak. Let me get that. I like to put the link for the show so people can come back and look at it. And Sonic Alliance, that's organized by Fez. Oops, I'm part. Yeah, that's organized by Fez once a month, so that's cool. Now we come to Resident. So Resident is this Tuesday, October 13 at 8 p.m. I've got a nice lineup with Alex Barnett, MIDI Script, Manifold Theory, Data Freak, Memory Bell, Craigzy, and Scummel Dub. So a few people from here and New York? I think so, New York, Colorado. What else on the other show? So that's this Tuesday at 8 p.m. So it will be a watch party with some very unique pieces. I see that Synth Booth is coming soon, so that will be on the 16th and 18th of October. That I forgot to put the link for Resident. So Resident is also on Facebook, but I like to put the link from the improviser, so everybody who's on Facebook on it. So Synth Booth is coming up also 16 or 18 of October. It's a mix of performance and workshop, so that's cool. What else do I have? I saw that the Modular Synthesizer Live is having a show in next Saturday, 6 p.m, I think, in 7 days. I think Saturday or Friday. But here's a link, you can watch it on YouTube. So that's another Modular Synth Society. And I just saw also that Colorado Modular Society is doing an event on the 25th of October, so in a couple of weeks. They call it October Sky, and the theme is space music. So that's all cool. Oh, I've got David Poland joining, who say bonjour. Oh, and Alpha is telling me that Synfest UK is this weekend also. So I don't have the link, but please Google it and you'll find it.
It's like synthfest.co.uk, I believe. I just saw that this morning and I was like, why did I know about this?
Yes, indeed. So synthfest.co.uk, but I guess Google search will find it easy. What did I find on Bandcamp? So I spoke about it, but Emily Sprague has got a pre-release of our next album. So you have it, look at it, listen to it. I think there's one track that you can listen. Be released in November. I've seen also that Ambientvibes released a new album, and oh yes, and Data Cult Audio is doing a raffle with my last two albums. So if you want to participate in the raffle, that's really easy. You just need to say hi, tag somebody else, and follow Data Cult Audio. So here are the link on Instagram. Right, and I see Coreluna has joined also. So hi everybody. So I'm with Peter Nyboer. I put your site on. Here is your site and board at us. We change my screen and we're gonna start dealing with everything. Okay, so here we go. I'm with Peter Nyboer. Hi Peter. So
hello.
Who are you?
Oh, I am Peter Nyboer. I am a sort of artistically, I kind of run all over the place, from ambient to techno to psychedelic guitar stuff. And then professionally, I'm working with Sensel on the Sensel Morph pressure sensing controller. And I've sort of been in the music products business for about 20 years or so now, doing MIDI controllers. So before I was working with Sensel, I had like a 2 or 3 year stint with a company doing embedded computing. And that was enjoyable from a sort of educational standpoint. And then before that, I was doing a company called Livid Instruments, and you can see much of the archive is behind me here. And so that was quite an adventure doing that. Now we had about a 11-year run or so, 12 years, just making kind of unusual grid and button and slider, button grids, sliders, knobs, various incantations of that. So that was also really cool. That was a good introduction into sort of getting into the music products.
Yeah, in the MIDI controller world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that's cool because I don't know, computers or laptops are able to do a nice synthesizer, but driving them from the keyboard is not that much fun.
Yeah, and we were really trying to, it's like, I always came at this stuff from like a really experimental mind frame, and I went to college at UC Santa Cruz and I did a bunch of the music program there, the electronic music studios, and that was a really kind of experimental mindset. And then there was a lot of like project-based work. And it wasn't a major or a minor, so it was really cross-disciplinary. And so you kind of get all these influences from all over the campus. And, a lot of discussion about like the experimentalists from the mid-century all the way up to contemporary music. And so that really kind of like always put me in this sort of experimental mind frame. I got introduced to Max MSP there. So that was how I was really manipulating MIDI data at the time. I wasn't really focused on a timeline, and so I was like, oh, this is how you do computer music. And, so I stuck with that for a long time, and then sort of getting into the music products, I had this sort of experimentalist vision, but, there was also the pull to be like, well, how do we make that more accessible? How do we make it so that people can interact with all of this power on their laptops without using a keyboard necessarily? So, Ableton Live was invented at the beginning of the century, and so we were definitely connected with that, and doing a lot of sort of monome type things, but giving people more control with all of the continuous controllers. So we originally started working with visuals, and that was kind of our, Livid was a sort of condensation of live video, and we were making software and controllers really kind of specifically for doing live video and VJ stuff. But that kind of was like, that stayed on the fringe, and people kept asking if our controller worked with Ableton Live, so that we kind of took the hint and kind of moved more into music at that time. So yeah, that was a really good adventure, and kind of like, it was always a struggle, like how do we do things that, have the freedom of experimentalism, but also speak to people's desire for productivity and, trying to make a living.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, that's nice. I see Next Expanse joined, and also if you want to ask a question to Peter, post it in the chat. So peronosphora has got one question, and instead of going backward, we're going to go in the future. So where do you see yourself in your music career in a few years? Where are you going?
Wow, it's like a job interview.
Yes.
Am I going to have to like do some stuff on a whiteboard soon?
Why not?
Coding challenge. In 5 years, I really don't have a grand vision of my artistic career. It's always, been something that I've always been working artistically with the stuff around my professional life, so there's always like this crumb of satisfaction I get from working with sound and trying to think of interactions of sound and explain those things to people. And then every once in a while I get an opportunity or the bug to do like a performance. I released an album about 4 months ago or so, which has been something that I've been working on for like 3 years. And then I have another album in the works that I did in really like most of the work I did within 2 weeks. But it'll probably take me another 3 years to get the last 5% done. So yeah, artistically, it's hard to say. Like, I really love performing. I love composing, but as a career, I haven't really ever tried to manifest that, because I do enjoy the freedom of just being like, oh, I'm going to play guitar, and, I don't have to be craven to a brand or anything. I can kind of do what I want, but it would be nice if I could have the following and the appreciation that could make it more of a career where I could play out live more often when people can actually gather again. But it's such a tremendous amount of work that I don't really have the sort of resources to just sort of balance that work life and art thing. So hopefully someday I'll have more freedom to do that. But in the meantime, I'm going to continue to just keep, I guess, respecting that creative impulse that I have, and just, make sure that I get some work out, and then eventually maybe there will be some recognition or some momentum behind it.
Yes. And yeah, sometimes, you've got pleasure in making music, and when you transform it into a work stuff, it's, yeah.
I wouldn't, I wouldn't mind, because I do love just the raw materials of sound and, crafting them. But if I had to do it for a purpose, that's not a challenge that I've had too much, like having to do sound for film, for example, or, compose, produce for a particular artist who wants to reach a particular audience or whatever. So, I don't know how well I would do with that. And I think it's interesting that like with modular stuff, there is a lot more of like this sort of casual, personal or introspective, music making, where there's all this music that is made and a lot of people don't hear it. And I think I think for a long time, I think people have sort of dismissed that, like, like, oh, you got all this gear, but you're not making any music. You're not releasing it. You're not famous or whatever. And it's like, well, so what? You're appreciating sound and working with sound, and, and you're creating art, and, people do release it, but it's not, people aren't the cultural movement it's not coming. They're not like a font of a cultural movement in the same way that like Taylor Swift is or whatever. It's just this personal appreciation for sound, and I think that it infects our culture in other ways, and I think that's really important.
Yes, and so I put your album on the Miasma on the screen and gave the link also.
Cool.
So on Bandcamp, so if people want to see. Yeah, and I see like, I don't know, Dave Smith, has been making synthesizer for, and is well known, and Dopfer also I made, started the eurorack. So people are creating instruments, they know to perform them, they release some music, for fun, but their creativity is in other area of the music making part. So you need a little bit of everybody to do a work.
Yeah, and I think it is interesting how these highly technical things like do become these. It's almost like someone's library, from like the 1800s or something. You'd have, if you were a person who wanted to explore the world, you'd have a big library, and then that library would surround you. And if you had the means, of course, you would sort of surround yourself with it. And in some ways, modular is like that for a lot of people, I think, except instead of, it's exploring a very specific part of human existence in sound, I guess.
Yeah, and it's putting also emotion into your music making, and sometimes, for you and a couple of friends.
Right. And that's perfectly okay. And I think there's, like I said, I do feel like that there's been some, that's that feeling of that being a problem or an indulgence or whatever, I think is melting away. And it's something I've shared in the past. It's like, well, why do you have all this gear if you're not making music? And then when I thought about it, it's like, well, so what? That's great.
Yeah, at first I was saying about that in the chat, how many people have got collect guitars and, just noodle on them.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure of having the instrument and having a sound, having fun with them. Like, the wall of modular. So it's interesting. Oh yeah, and the people don't say, didn't Prince have thousands of songs not released? Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because the from the music products business perspective, there have been several attempts to sort of foray into this casual music making. There's been sort of like, there's all these people with their phones that, and there's these apps, and there's Prellerhead's Figure, for example, is one of those things where it's not a video game per se, but it is kind of like a way for someone to casually interact with, techno music. And I think there's, and this is something we tried at Livid and kind of fell on in some ways in trying to like make it more popular and more personable. And I think in some ways like Eurorack has been the best example of that because it like for whatever reason that's captured the heart of the sort of casual or personal music maker more so than, not in sheer numbers, but in terms of emotion and enthusiasm,
Yes, indeed. So I would ask you, how did you come into the world of modular synth? And,
I was introduced to it in Santa Cruz. There was there was a Moog modular there. I don't believe it was functional at the time I was there. There was also my teacher, Peter Elsey, who taught most of the studio classes. He also ran the studios and fixed all the gear and kept the tape heads in alignment and, did all of that stuff. He was quite the factotum, I guess, in that regards. He had a home-built synthesizer, a home-built modular called the Kluge phone, and it was, pieces of, things that he had built over the previous probably 20 years. And it was a pretty sizable, rack, and that was really my first exposure to it, just patching things and, just getting sounds out of it and trying to modulate stuff and get these sort of autonomous sound sculptures going. that was really kind of my first foray into it. But then that was 1992, 93, I guess, when I was doing that. And so once I left the studios, I didn't really come back to modular until really just a few years ago. And even then, I'm very small scale about it because I can only handle so much gear. I actually got my first small modular system of, I think, 42 HP for Super Booth in 2018 because I wanted to demo the Sensel Morph with modular there because that's what that show's all about. Like, I didn't want to just go with a laptop and show off software because that didn't really speak to the audience. So I built a small system that, you know, had a voice. It had has the Snyderphonics Momentum 8, so I can just basically plug the morph in and get CV out, and then people could play around with that. And you know, doing that, I started to build up a few more systems. So I have basically like 3 systems of 40 to 50 HP each, and you'll see them in the performance.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't know, as you're mentioning the morph, I think I should show the. I think everybody knows about the sensel morph, so I'm showing the morph page.
Not everybody knows. A lot more people need to know.
Yes. Yeah, I was talking with David yesterday, and I said, "Oh, Peter will talk about the morph. What morph? That morph?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that morph. Yeah, that morph."
Yeah.
So, how did you get into, I don't know, involved with the morph, and what do you do with it?
Well, that was really kind of the, you know, it's funny that as far as like becoming part of the company, it was a fairly casual affair. I've gone to like several like hardware startup meetups, and I was doing that more probably about five or 6 years ago. In San Francisco, there was always these fun events where it's like hardware startup, and you just kind of get it was really a very San Francisco scene, but it was also very like engaging and kind of surprising, and you know, all sorts of things. And it was a lot of people with like, you know, small teams of people looking for funding and showing off their hardware ideas, whether it was like IoT or, you know, some app or something like that, that interacted with a device. So I went to show off the guitar wing, I believe. So this was a Livid venture, which was like, it's basically a little Bluetooth MIDI controller for a guitar, and it just clips onto a guitar, and it gives you some pressure sensitive pads and some sliders and some, you know, controls for effects. And so I went to show that off just because it's like good practice. Like I wasn't going for really any great, you know, wasn't trying to get funding or anything because then no one there cared. I mean, they thought it was cool, you know, but no one was ready to invest in music products. And I just struck up a conversation with this guy, and I was like, "Oh, what do you do?" And he's like, "Oh, well, I'm building pressure sensors." And I was like, "Wow, that's cool because we need those at Livid." And so that was Ilya Rosenberg, who's the founder of Sensel, and it was when he was just starting the company. So I eventually met up with him and his partner Aaron, and it was just the two of them at the time, and just went to their office and just traded ideas and talked casually and said like, oh, it'd be great if we could do this with it, you know, and we just never ended up working together with them because the technology wasn't ready to embed in our products. And then like a few years later, I had gotten laid off from a job and was just sort of poking around my network and said, hey, do you guys need any help? It was, you know, and I had been in touch with them a little bit, and they were like, yeah, we really do. And so they were just finishing up the morph to send out to their Kickstarter backers and release it as a product. And I came along and I'm like, oh, I know all of this music stuff, and I know a lot of people in this business, and I know how it works. And so, you know, we started working together on that. And yeah, and I've just sort of become sort of like, as I described it recently, the spirit animal, where I have all these ideas about how you can integrate it into music, and then a little bit broader for other productivity means. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it's been really fun. I mean, it was nice that it wasn't like, you know, an interview situation. I kind of just, you know, it was very organic in the way I came to it.
Yes. I see Hugo Price join, and
Hugo.
Yes.
Hello.
And Sensor Music. I'm just saying, yes. So Hugo is looking forward to see how you play with a morph.
All right.
Oh no, and yeah, also there's a discussion. Also, David DB Paran, Wabi Sabi is asking for you. With the innovator overlay, anyone can create their own template, including those sold by sensel, but doesn't offering the self-make option cut into the cell of the template?
Sorry, say again. The self-make option is the...
Yeah, is the self-make option is cutting in the cell of the template.
Oh no, not at all, not at all. And it's just another option because like the cool thing about that is I think a lot of people there's a real gradient of experience you can have with the morph, where you can use the overlays out of the box with GarageBand or whatever. And I think there's definitely an audience of people who don't care about that and have always wanted to do some sort of experiment with their own layouts and controls. And this is actually something we did at Livid, where we created circuit boards and released like a MIDI microcontroller board that you could connect sensors and buttons and sliders and things into, and literally make your own hardware MIDI controller. And that was a really interesting project, and there was some really fantastic things that came out of that, like people just building really wild controllers that suited their very specific vision. And with the morph, it's like 100 times easier because there's no soldering or anything, And so that audience is out there. It's not the biggest audience, but the nice thing about the morph is like you can sort of address this audience that is very small without having to make a specific thing for that audience, and fall on that sword, because building a niche hardware product is extremely expensive and, sort of doomed. So it's really cool that we can, offer something to that crowd that is very satisfying. And I don't think, some of those people would be interested in the Thunder because that's an alternative layout. But, a lot of people in that arena don't really care about the piano overlay, for example. And the other cool thing about it is that, some people can just use it for like, if they need 5 buttons, because a lot of times that's all you need. And, so you can have 5 buttons and then swap to a piano if you want to.
Yeah, that's nice. Well, I guess the piano overlay is practical. It's nice to have a kind of a real keyboard for piano.
Yeah, because sometimes you just need a G minor and you know where it is.
Yeah, so it's convenient. You swap it and here it goes. But yeah, on the sorry, I'm forgot the Thunder. Sorry, when I'm looking for a name, I'm lost. Yeah, so I got a 28C, the release of the booklet, and I think I need to get I don't know, in the next purchase, I need to get the Thunder, the sensel, and it's quite a nice, I don't know, alternative to the real things, the old Thunder that, and I think it's really hard to find at the moment, and it's make it very lightweight and stuff. But how did it come, this collaboration between Sensel and Buchla?
That came about just sort of, again, like you interviewed Kurt not too long ago, and he kind of planted the seed for that when he saw that, when we first showed him the morph, and he was like, you guys should do a Thunder overlay. And I was like, yeah, that's a cool idea, but I'm sort of thinking like, wow, that's a really niche play, But we kept talking about it, and I had known Joel Dabble from Buchla for a long time, and so eventually, like, I think it was at a trade show, we just sort of started talking about it more, like, what can we do to make this happen? And then we just kept plugging away at it. Really, it was kind of a very gradual thing. And then once we decided to do it, we just kind of went all in and said, let's do this. And it was a great move. It's it's one of those things that, like, it's done way better than I expected. People are kind of hungry for that type of thing. And I also think that it gives people an opportunity to experience like an experimental interface without having to go all in on it. You know, it's like if someone released a MIDI controller that was just the Thunder, like it would kind of cap out and you'd only, you know, reach so many people with it. Because we're like, well, do I need another device or whatever, you know? So this way you don't have to be married to it. You can always swap in something else there.
And I suppose at the time the 2OC was in the wings of being remade, maybe, or that was totally independent?
Well, when we first decided to do this, it was like that was their next project, but it was only just sort of in their own, you know, in their cloud. It wasn't like super actively being developed at that time. And then once they started to get that wrapped up, then they're like, well, how can we integrate these two? And so they added the host option, and you know, in that way we could easily plug into the whole system. And it's really fun to play with. I did a bunch of content around that about 3 weeks ago or so, and kind of made a landing page for it so people can just sort of see a demo and see how it works. And if you own the pair, you can learn how to get it all running. So
yeah, and I think the release of the two together, or you know, was maybe not meant to be together, it was two separate projects, but merging them, I guess, got the success of one and the other. I've got I think I see Ars Modular Society join, Alex Barnett also.
Welcome.
Hugo was saying, so here's another question. A lot of people using music notation software, and it can be cumbersome to get the K combo. So have you thought about a music notation overlay?
We have thought about it, and it's definitely on our radar. But I can just to be honest, like, no, we aren't actively doing that, but it is on our radar for sure. Because we've had that comment from a number of people, and they think that would be an interesting thing. So probably something to look at in a year or so, I would say.
Yeah.
But it's not like, that is definitely not an area of my expertise. So that's one of those things that we have to like slowly work on and find the right vehicle for it. So
yeah, and there could be different notation systems, and you need to find the right user experience, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh yes, Ars Modular Society also, so they've got a YouTube channel and they do a lot of streaming and a Discord server, which make me think that I should also put the invite for Left Coast Slide Discord server, so if you want to join. We are about half past, so that's usually when I do the performance. Just checking if anybody has got any more question, or if Malarkey say also that he use the morph with
oh, nice.
Yeah, and
we're working on some improvements for that, so keep your eye out, Malarkey. It's not a bunch of malarkey. Yes, I did that. Yeah, so it should be a much like better experience. Like we actually recently did one for Pure Data, so we integrated the touch data and the API, and that works really nicely. So I've been really pleased with those results. It's really fun to play with. So
yeah, and I think Malarkey I think just takes the input from the sensor. You know? Right,
that's what I mean. Like that's like one of the deeper aspects of the morph is that there's an API that you can use with C#, Python, and
Go,
Max, and PD, and so you can really like get all of your touches and then just apply those to sound in a way that it's like you really just. It's fantastic. You're really connected to it. I love it.
Yeah, I guess. Because translating this nice interface into MIDI control and then bring it back into playing software.
You can't do that.
But it's a kind of quantization.
There's no space to do that, but you can just use the raw data, and you skip the MIDI thing entirely. So you're just really like quite directly connected. And when you do that, you're not necessarily using an interface. It's just the whole blank slate of the morph, and you're just kind of mashing around on it, and it's so great.
Yeah, very raw interface.
Yeah, and it's just like I love the opportunity for this sound interaction that really Don was getting at when he did the Thunder in the first place, And when he was working with like the capacitive touch boards, like, he was trying to implement that human touch in a way that you don't get with all these other models of making music. And that is just, Don's always fascinated me from his sort of like, him being sort of an iconoclast in synthesis and in interaction. And so it was extra sort of like, just extra gratifying to be able to take one of his ideas and, bring it to life again and bring it into a new domain. So it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, Malaki say he found it interesting to grab the realm of data from the innovator in Max and build more abstract interface from.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, what is it? Finger touch having an impact rather than using discrete interface region.
Yes. Yeah. So once you put a finger down, it's controlling a thing, and then you can use the whole area for every finger, and so that's what's really interesting about it.
So before we go to the performance, do you want to talk about it, or I launch it and then we talk about it later?
Yeah, maybe let's just watch it, and then afterwards I can sort of take questions and sort of take you through some of like the parts that were particularly interesting to me to sort of develop and play with. So,
all right,
cool.
Yes. I'll launch that. Well, that was really awesome. Thanks, Peter. Really
Thank
cool.
you.
Everybody is, clapping and saying full performance. Really great.
There we go. That's the audio.
All right, let's do it.
All right, thank you.
And as I've got everybody here motivated, don't forget to click subscribe, like, follow, go on Peter's site and also follow him there. I'm reposting his Instagram page, and I guess I will put the your last Bandcamp release, and then from there people should find all the link.
Cool.
So that was really nice. Peronosphora, Alex Barnett. Okay, everybody's doing clapping.
All right, thank you.
No, that was really nice and really interesting. And thanks also for answering the question on which interface is connected to what.
Yeah. I can go through some of that now. I answered a few of the questions, but I mean, I guess I can kind of start from the start. I can grab my camera and show some stuff. Yeah. What's over here, and I'll kind of throw up a slider here. So do you hear that?
Yeah.
You hear the bassy sound?
Yes. So before we go into the nerdy part, what was the inspiration for this track?
It was really, a lot of it started with, I was in, and this is kind of the bane of my existence. I perform so infrequently that every time I perform, I create a whole new set. So I have like all these really giant sets that have been performed once, and so again, this one I was like, I kind of want to do something, that, I first had the idea that I was going to just use my hardware synths, and I wanted to get a bunch of my, I have, of course, a pile of old iPhones, and I wanted to get all those synced with Link or however, and just use those as impulses and MIDI sources for all the hardware, just kind of let those things go and then just knob twiddle and just find my way through that. But that didn't really, that ended up being more complicated because you can't, unfortunately, like I didn't really have anything to amplify the headphone out from the phone to act as a clock source. And then I was missing a couple like converters, and I was just like, to hell with that. And then I had to go down to Southern California. So I just had my laptop and my Morph, and I just started working like, well, what are some of the sounds I want to work with, and laid a few things out in Bitwig, and that's kind of the core of what I was doing with the Morph and the Thunder interface. So those are all MPE synths. So I have pressure and pitch bend and location to be able to sort of massage my way through those sounds, and those are all like. There's one that's just one of the built-in synths. It's the Phase 4, which is kind of like a distant cousin inspired by the CS80, I think. And so that's kind of like a string sound. And then I have Madrona Labs Alto. And then I have a couple tracks where it's this. I was at Kurt's many, probably about a year or two ago. And we ended up just creating a big sample library from a Buchla oscillator, and just like sampled it the heck out of it. And so I have this big thing of just tones from the Buchla and created a sampler instrument from that. And so I used that and then treated that a little bit and created a couple different instruments that I play. One is the more percussive sound, and the other one's kind of more of a droney synth sound. But yeah, I just kind of I love using the MPE interaction to be able to use the pressure in different ways and massage. And so that kind of I found sounds that worked well together. And then just like a really basic drum beat. And then, once I got home, then I started working with the modular stuff and figuring out how I could sync that stuff up. And again, just kind of finding my way through the sounds. And I knew that was going to sort of take care of some rhythmic, bassy things, and brought that in, just brought the stereo from that into Bitwig, and then had a couple delays on it and maybe some reverb. and then just kind of started playing with it all and getting it working and rehearsing with that.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And for people, so Kurt goes by the artist name Pef, and I had him a couple of weeks ago. So if you're looking for the interview, it's under Pef. So I think people are asking that you bring a little bit more the wide angle and show us a little bit the room and the setup.
Yeah, okay. So it's a little bit set up a little bit differently, but here I'll get my lights turned around here, and I'm just gonna take this camera off. Hello.
Meanwhile,
All right. Let's see. So, what do I got here?
I lost the video.
Yeah, it'll be back soon. There we go. And now we're focusing. All right.
Yes,
so this is my homemade rolly desk. And it's actually built on the base of a like drafting stool. So I can lift it up and push it down, but I generally don't. So this was what is sort of my setup, where I had the control R and the Thunder overlay. And then that was going over to my computer over there that was running Bitwig. And then over here is sort of my hardware setup. So cast some light over here.
Stabilize the camera for a second.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So this is sort of modular kit 1, and I was using Platts and the Domino in here. And then I've got the sequencer, you see, sort of just randomly outputting the little sequence and some DSP for reverb. And then over here, I was focused on the Basimilus Iteris alter for that sort of bassy drum sound. And then the Mantamate is spitting out a bunch of voltage here. So normally this is sort of a USB interface. So you can plug the morph directly into that and then get MPE voltages that you can control things with. And that's not what I'm using it for. It's currently in no input mode. So it's just spitting out trigger and then random voltages. And they're sort of pseudo-random. You can sort of modify them very slightly, just with some button combinations. So your sequence changes a little bit. But that's kind of just controlling the sound of the Basimilus. And then I've got a couple filters on things, and then I have the microbrute over here. This was providing the clock, so I'm sending MIDI clock from Bitwig to this to sync the LFO, and then I use the LFO out, set to a square wave or a triangle wave, and then that's providing clock to my clock needing friends. So I use the Arturia a little bit just for a little bit of like kind of a reedy synth sound. And I have that going. I started looking for guitar pedals on AliExpress. I found this delay. It's fine. It just doesn't do enough feedback. So that's kind of a drag. But it was like $20.
Yeah, so.
And then you hear a little bit of the Volca FM, which I've come to like. The next album that I'm going to be releasing is actually just the SH01A and the Volca FM. And I think that's pretty much all I use on that album. I think there might be a couple other little sound sources.
Minimalist setup.
What's that?
Minimalist setup.
Yeah, and it was, I just kind of did a track every morning on vacation, and it really came together nicely. So hopefully you can hear that sometime in the next 3 years. But yeah, there's my Don Buchla poster, my stunt rock.
Hold on, the camera is focusing. Here we go.
Sorry. Stunt rock poster is someone I'm very happy noticed. I love that movie. And the other side of the Don Buchla poster, got some guitars hanging, the Roland JC77, so I can have chorusy jazz fusion sounds. And that's actually, you'll hear a lot of that on the Miasma release, though I'm not doing jazz fusion because I can't play like that. Mm-hmm. And nor would I want to. And then over here is the Livid Control R. And this is probably my favorite product that we did at Livid. And we developed this with Richie Houghton as sort of like a combination of like the things that he loved from, step sequencing, Roland drum machines, and then of course having lots of DJ sliders and stuff. So these are all encoders up here, and so they, as you go through your set, they can adapt to whatever device. These are used for sends, and then these are volumes for the different tracks, and then you can select different tracks and MIDI clips and do step sequencing on them here. There's a ton of stuff you can do with it. It's kind of complicated, but it's very well worth it.
You configure it for your performance or your workflow?
Yeah, there's actually scripts we developed for Ableton Live and for Bitwig, and those scripts fortunately still work. So, so I can still use them in Bitwig. So that's nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then here's sort of it's kind of messy right now, but these are all MIDI controllers, most of them from the Livid archive. Okay. So there's block, ohm 64, code, bass, the electrics tweaker, the original ohm. So yeah, I have a 10x12 here, and I'm trying to make it as efficient as possible. So there's lots of use of vertical space.
Yeah, sometimes it's when you start to collect a synthesizer, you need to have a place where they are ready to go. Yeah,
it's like I definitely achieved a goal where things are kind of hot all the time. This was a pretty key element to that, this little art mixer. You can find these pretty cheap used on Reverb. And the cool thing is it's like 8 channels, but then each channel has pan, and that's about it.
Oh, nice.
And it just stereo out. And you can run microphones into them too, which is nice. And then Alan Strasberg hooked me up with 3D printing this under table rack mount doodads, because I was looking for something to do that, and I couldn't find anything. And except I found somebody had done a 3D model of that. And then I found a friendly person with a 3D printer to print them for me. So.
And they are plastic?
Yeah, they're plastic.
Okay, and strong enough, so that's cool.
Yeah, plenty strong.
Nice.
Probably too strong.
Yes. Yeah, peronosphora say thank you for the room tour. That was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's cool a little bit to see your, creative environment.
Yeah, thank you.
And I guess this is where you work from home too?
Yeah. Yeah, so I had to do a lot of, I've always worked from home, but then I had to do even more organization when we had our shutdown, because I started doing live streaming stuff. And so I set up this area, which is sort of my presentation table, and photography studio and things like that. You'll see an ad in Waveform. There's 2 ads in Waveform that we're doing, Waveform magazine. And one of them is with the Buchla music easel, the easel command and morph combination. And you'll recognize this background here.
So that's cool. Was it in the last Waveform or?
No, it's in the one that's shipping at the end of this month.
Okay, because they sent me one a few months ago. Okay.
Yeah, it's October 22nd, I think, is the ship date.
All right. Okay.
Look for it in your mailbox.
Yes. I'm subscribed to Waveform.
Yeah.
But I didn't see any announcement yet of the new one. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice. Anybody has got any question for Peter while we're at it? Please ask them in the chat. Yes, it's in some music. Yes, Next Expense also is here. Didn't do a shout out. So, do you have any project? I don't know, music wise. So you say you were doing a new album, and you said that. Oh no, yeah. I think we spoke on the side also. You've got something as Synth Booth.
Yeah, so doing the Synth Booth show this week. I guess it starts the 14th, and it's all very last minute for me. So, but I'll be doing some live streams and chats or whatever I'm able to do in that thing. So, I'm not entirely sure how it all works, but I'll be doing some sort of workshop presentations, demos, hosting things like that. So, hopefully it all goes well, because live streaming can always be a little bit dicey. Even though I have fast internet, still can be dicey. But Synth Booth looks it's pretty ambitious. I'm kind of excited because they're really trying to take like that sort of synth show, this super booth. I love Synth Booth. I've been comparing this to it's like the RC Cola of synth shows.
Interesting.
It's synth booth. It's Boca-Bola, not Coca-Cola. But it is cool because they're doing performances and they have like a really awesome artist lineup. They've got some great speakers. Suzanne Chani's going to be talking about Buchla, which is always worth the cost of admission. I think it's like $10 or $25. Yeah, and I think there's an exhibit room with a lot of manufacturers like Sensel and Modular people.
Yeah, and it's
So it won't be hands-on, but you'll be able to like talk to the person and get live demos of stuff. So I'm really interested to see how it all plays out. This is the first sort of virtual show that has really kind of been fully featured in that regards. So I'm really curious to see how it works out and how it feels and everything. So
yeah, I think people are looking for the format for I don't know, music show. Mm-hmm. It's still a little bit difficult because all the working from home video conferencing platform don't treat audio right. Well, they treat it right for speaking, but not for music.
Right.
A few of them are starting to have the music option where we are not touching your audio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
what you are detecting is not noise.
But yeah, it is. It looks like a good show. Like I deeply miss doing some of these shows. Like I realized how much I miss them because I enjoy the interaction with people, and I always have great conversations and just meet good supportive people with great ideas and not a lot of hang-ups. So
yeah, and and it's usually you go there for the networking. So
yeah, networking and just vibe.
Yes. Yeah, that's sometimes what's missing because more or less the presentation that people are doing, and you're just here to ask a couple of extra questions and have a conversation on the side.
Yeah,
and then make friends.
Yeah.
And so, Michael Zibzinski. All right, thank you for helping me.
Yes.
Yes, you say, well, tell me more about the music notation overlay. I guess
he's one of the people who has poked me about that. So
it seems that's a past conversation.
Yes, exactly.
Well, no, you've got two. You've got Hugo and Michael.
Good. Well, I mean, they're both going to be useful resources for that project when it comes.
Sufficient, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Building the fan base, and then after the product will emerge.
Absolutely.
Yes. So the synth booth, and you say, okay, you're working on an album. I don't know what your other project that you have, or if you want to. It's a little bit the time to wrap up the show, so I'm just making sure we covered everything you wanted to talk about. Yeah,
that's the most immediate thing, is doing synth booth. There's another one in November called Sound Mit that's run out of Torino from Italy. And that's, I think, November 14th. And then, I'm going to, as the holiday season, we do a lot of direct sales. So holiday season is just going to take over my life. So we're going to be doing various, sales and promotions, and there's going to be some software releases that come out. So those are going to require my attention. So there's going to be a lot more emphasis on MPE at the end of this year, I think, which is great. I think there's going to be a lot of nice focus on that, and there's going to be a new audience for that. So that's going to be exciting because we have a lot of good stuff to show about it, and and all sorts of interesting ideas about how to use it. So I've also been hosting, last thing, I've been hosting a thing on the KVR forum. So if anybody uses KVR audio, I've been doing the MPE experts and putting up a lot of tutorials about how to use MPE with a lot of different softwares like Madrona Labs and Pigments and all these, a lot of pretty much everything, Falcon and all of the big titles and the cool titles in MPE. And then also touching on some hardware stuff. So I actually have a tutorial that's going to go up probably on Monday, about the Manta Mate and using it with MPE. So check in on that forum to get that video.
All right, sounds awesome. So I'm going to go a little bit over who show up on the show and do some shout out, go back on the news, and I guess I'll let you the last word to close the show. So who did we have here? I had Alpha Sergeant, Peronosphora, Malarkey, Alex Barnett, Bill Watrowski, Sensor Music. Just going over. It's your last chance to have a shout out. DB Poland was here. Hugo Paris. Or Hugo R.A. Paris. What else do I have? Listen some music. Earth Modular Society also has got YouTube streaming quite often. Getting there for doing like a 24/7 modular synth YouTube. Where else did the show up? Corey Luna was here. I saw Next Expanse. And over the name. And Michael Zibzinski. Maybe I got it right. So that's all cool for all of you to join. Don't forget to subscribe, like, tell it to your parents about this show so they can come and watch it.
So they understand what you're into.
Yes. And follow Peter on the Instagram, Bandcamp. That's not this Instagram. Back the link to Instagram. I'm going to put back the link to your Bandcamp release. Right. And wait, your site, Nyboer. Because from Nyboer you'll find all the link for getting to know better Peter and following him on the internet. And all right, let's go back over a bit the news. So I'm gonna change that so we are both on the screen. All right, so you know my site pitchymango.org. I want to thank my supporter on Bandcamp, $20 a year, and yesterday I dropped a new track that I produced called Dystopia. It's in 5.1, and I use my new plugin to make it binaural. You can get also the t-shirt, so no DB Poland, it's not free, but maybe I'll do a raffle. There's currently also a raffle if you leave a review on my last album, Symphony. You may get the DVD. So, new t-shirt made by a friend, Tech15. Resonant Frequency was on Sunday, so you've got a very nice lineup, nice show, and it was all live performance, like really live, streaming from people's home. You've got a Peak, which is coming not this Wednesday, but the Wednesday next, and they're usually at 7 p.m., and that's with Jordan, Michael Francis, and Yorez. You've got Sonic Alliance, which is organized by Fez, that's some snow. You've got Resident Electronic Music, which is this Tuesday. So we'll have a watch party, and I've got Alex Barnett, MIDI Script, Manifold Theory, Data Freak, Memory Bell, Craig Z, Kamal De, and Corey. I haven't added Corey to the there. You've got Synth Booth, which is coming 16-18 October, and Peter said that there will be some off demonstration there, so you may want to join that. Oh yeah, Corey, peak October 21st. Thanks. Thanks, Modular Society. Nice shirts. It's not a cat on synthesizer in space, it's a synthesizer robot in space. Trying to change it. Thanks, Alphaster, for the link. So I put it during the performance. So it's a Synthfest UK virtual event on the 10 and 11. So today and tomorrow, UK time. So it may have started. It's on YouTube. Let me put the link. So everybody can. I need to Google it. That one, I've got the Modular Austin Live that is doing a show on the 17th of October, and I've got Colorado Modular Synth Society, which just announced a special event on the 25th, which is space music. So if you attend this show, don't forget to wear your robot synthesizer in space t-shirt. And also on Bandcamp, so Emily Sprague is releasing a new album. And I saw also Ambientlogist with a new album. Alright, that's about all my link. I'll put back. Oh, and this last one. There's also a raffle by Data Cult Audio. Data Cult Audio bring a new modular synth artist every week. I think Friday, like a 1 hour performance. So they've got a nice collection and they are doing a raffle. Follow the instruction on Instagram and you can get the DVD and the album. Elements, Symphony and Elements. All right, back to Peter. So Peter, I think we covered everything that we should cover, and that was really awesome for you to come here on the show and answer all our questions. I'm just checking if anybody something. Yeah, DB said that. Yeah, Sarah Bell Reid did a Morph and Hydrasynth demonstration with MP. Okay, cool. It's on YouTube. All right, so thank you, Peter, for being on the show. That was really awesome. And,
all right, thanks so much for having me.
And see a little bit your studio.
All right.
I'll let you use the word for the... before that, the next show. So you change that. So the next show is with Wabi Sabi. So DB Poland was here. So that's next Saturday. Sorry. Double click. So next show, Wabi Sabi, it's this Saturday. And... I'll let you do the word for the end and launch the outro.
Okay, perfect, because my battery just died on the camera. So thank you for having me, and thank you for stopping by, everybody.
All right, thank you very, very much, everybody. Bye.
Bye.